All right, class, welcome. Telling time is one of the first things we learn to do as kids, and it's just as fundamental when you're learning a new language. It's practical, it's essential. So in this explainer, we're going to build that foundation in Mandarin Chinese, starting with the absolute basics and then layering in some really precise and, you'll see, culturally rich ways of talking about time. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the single most important character you need to know. Then we'll build on that by adding halves and quarters. After that, and this is so important, we'll do a deep dive into pronunciation. Then we'll take a fascinating look at the history behind one of these words. And finally, we'll bring it all together to make sure it sticks.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, I want you to just think about this for a second. Time itself is universal, right? But the way we talk about it, the words we choose, that's all deeply tied to culture. It shapes everything. So how do we even start to build this idea in Mandarin? Well, as you're about to see, it all starts with one single, beautifully simple character. Okay, let's dive in. Our first section is all about the absolute cornerstone of telling time in Mandarin. It's this character right here, dian, which we pronounce as dian. Seriously, mastering this one character is the key, because everything else we do today is going to build right on top of it. So what is dian? Well, we translate it as a clock, but its literal meaning is so much more intuitive. It means point or dot. And I want you to actually picture an old-school analog clock. Each number, 1, 2, 3, is a specific point on that circle. So when you say the hour in Mandarin, you're literally referring to that precise point in time. Now, this character is incredibly versatile. You'll see it used to mean a little bit or even to order food, but for our purposes, that core idea of a point is what matters. It's a perfect example of how Mandarin uses tangible visual ideas to talk about abstract concepts like time. And here is the best part. The grammar could not be easier. It is refreshingly simple. As you can see, all you do is say the number, and then you follow it with dian. That's it. So, for example, you take the number 7, which is qi, you add dian, and you get qi dian, 7 o'clock. This clean, logical, just added on structure is a key feature of how Mandarin handles time. Okay, so you've got the hour down. Now we can start adding some details to get more precise. We're going to introduce two absolutely essential terms, ban, which means half, and yi ke, which means quarter. Our first new vocabulary word is han, ban. The character itself just means half, and when we use it for telling time, its meaning is perfectly intuitive. It means half past the hour. Just like dian, it's like a little Lego block that we can just snap onto the phrase we already know. And here's a little tip. If you look at the character, it kind of looks like something split right down the middle, which can really help you remember it means half. And this slide just illustrates that logic perfectly. Take a look at the comparison here. On the left, we have our base, qi dian, 7 o'clock. Now to say 7:30, you just tack ban right on the end. It becomes qi dian ban, 7 o'clock half. See? It's just so beautifully logical. All right, next up, we have the phrase for a quarter hour, which is yi ke, yi ke. So let's break this down. Yi is just the number 1, and ke means quarter. So you put them together, and yi ke literally means 1 quarter. It refers to a 15-minute block of time. And trust me, that word ke has a really cool story behind it that we're going to get to in just a little bit. And as you've probably guessed, we follow the exact same additive logic. To say 7:15, you start with your base, qi dian, and you just add yi ke to it. So the whole phrase is qi dian yi ke, literally 7 o'clock and 1 quarter. That pattern, hour plus modifier, it just stays consistent. It's predictable. And that's great news when you're learning a language. Okay, let's pause here, because this next part is, I would argue, the most important section for actually communicating with people. Pronunciation and tones. You can know all the vocabulary in the world, but if you can't say it correctly, you won't be understood. So let's make sure your spoken Mandarin is crystal clear. Getting these tones right is absolutely non-negotiable. Let's break them down. First, dian. It's a third tone. Now, the biggest mistake students make is saying it low and flat, like dian. No, the third tone has to have a dip. It goes down and then it comes back up. Listen closely. Dian, dian. You have to feel that little scoop in your voice. Now, it gets a little tricky. Because of something called tone sandhi, when a third tone comes before another tone, like in qi dian, it often becomes a half-third. You just do the falling part. Next, we have ban. That's a fourth tone. It needs to be sharp, decisive. Think of it like a quick downward chop with your hand. Ban.
Don't let it be a lazy slide. It needs to be forceful. And finally, k. Same thing. It's also fourth tone, so it needs that same sharp drop. K. Okay, let's try to put it all together and feel the melody. Qi dian yi ke. It goes high flat, then dipping, then high flat, then falling. That musicality, that's Mandarin.
All right, now for one of my favorite parts, let's take a little journey into cultural history. Because, understanding where a word comes from does more than just help you remember it. It connects you to the entire world that word was born into. And we're going to look at the incredible story behind that word we just learned, cut. Because as you're about to find out, when you say a quarter past the hour, you're not just talking about 15 minutes. You're actually holding a little piece of ancient history on your tongue.
So when you say "ike," you are, whether you know it or not, talking about ancient technology. So where does "ke" come from? Well, the character itself actually means to carve. Now picture ancient China. They often kept time using a water clock. Basically, water would drip from one container to another, and in the second container, a little stick would slowly rise with the water level. To mark how much time it passed, an official would literally carve a notch, a ke, into that stick. Each ke that appeared above the water represented a certain amount of time. Over centuries, that interval got standardized, and today it's set at exactly 15 minutes. So every single time you say "qidian yi ke," you're using a word that comes from carving a mark on a water clock thousands of years ago. I mean, how amazing is that? Language is a living museum.
And this idea right here, this really gets to the very heart of why we study language the way we do. It's not about flashcards and just memorizing words. It's about uncovering the rich, historical, cultural story that every language tells. It's what turns you from someone who just speaks a language into someone who truly understands it. Okay, let's bring it all home now. We've laid the foundation, we've added the details, we've even looked at the history. Now it's time to put everything we've learned into practice. Let's do a quick review. Here they are, our 3 key phrases. I want you to say them out loud with me. Really focus on those tones. Let's practice a real-life scenario. Someone asks you the time. It's exactly 7 o'clock. You say, 七点, 七点. Good. Now it's 7:30. You say, 七点半, 七点半. And finally, at 7:15, you'd say, 七点一刻, 七点一刻. Saying these out loud over and over, that's how you build the muscle memory for the melody of the language.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to take with you. Now that you know the story of K, now that you know it comes from carving notches on a water clock, does that change how you feel when you say it? Does it make it more memorable? This is that bridge between just being fluent and having a true, deep understanding. Reflect on that as you continue your studies.